So today I'm going to show you how I make sourdough bread. I am by no means an expert in sourdough. As a matter of fact, I've only been making sourdough bread since November of 2024. And I credit my sister-in-law for helping me get started. And I follow that sourdough gal for a lot more details on recipes. But I've shared my starter with several friends who have not made any bread because they're not quite sure how. So I wanted to show you how I do it. I use a stand mixer. I don't really like the gooey dough on my fingers. I like to work with the dough once it's kind of come together a little bit more. And so I love using a stand mixer to do that. So I'm going to show you what I do. Might not be the most accurate, but it really works well for us and we love the bread that we've been eating. So we've got 500 grams each of King Arthur bread flour and Kirkland organic all-purpose flour in here. I've already measured out. I highly recommend using a food scale. A friend of mine years ago who's she was a fabulous baker before she passed, Brandy, she told me when she started weighing her ingredients it was a game changer, and I get it now. I don't ever like to bake anymore without weighing the ingredients. So 500 grams each of bread flour and all-purpose flour. I've got 20 grams of salt, 650 grams of water, which is just about 3 cups. And then I've got my sourdough starter that I fed this morning at 7:45. She has more than doubled. She's got lots of bubbles in here and she's ready to go. That's really all there is to making sourdough. So let me get started here. So I'm just going to put my flour in carefully. 20 grams of salt. And I am going to need to weigh my starter. So to weigh my starter, I've got my kitchen scale. Turn it on and make sure it's zeroed out. I can't see it. Right now it says 0 grams. I need 200 grams of active starter. And that's what I have right here. Slowly. There's 100 grams. $177 grams. It's probably going to be a little more than I need, but yeah, just a little over 200 grams. I'm going to leave it at that. It's totally fine. Now I'm going to put it in the stand mixer and mix. Okay. The flour and salt and starter are already in the mixer. I'm going to go ahead and add the 650 grams of water. And I'm going to use a dough hook. My KitchenAid came with an aluminum dough hook, and I found when trying to work with stiff or heavy doughs, especially making sourdough, it would expand at the top, and then I had a really hard time getting it off. So I got a stainless steel one. I've got lots of resources on my website with the tools that I use. I'm going to mix this slowly at first for about a minute, and then I mix it with the stand mixer for about 6 minutes. And this really pulls it all together and gets it ready for bulk fermentation on the counter. Here we go. So you can see right now it's really shaggy and it's still coming together. There's a lot of flour and dough stuck to the sides, but I guarantee within another 5 minutes this is going to look completely different. So it's been just a couple minutes and you'll see this is pretty shaggy dough. When I pinch and pull, it's very sticky and it breaks apart really easily. So we're going to keep on mixing. Okay, you can see here that the dough has come together nicely, and there's no flour left in the bowl. There's a little bit of the, mixed dough on the sides, but not a lot. And it's a lot more stretchy. We'll do a window pane test in just a moment. And if it doesn't pass that, we'll turn it back on and mix it a little longer. Right, so let's take a look at our dough. Honestly, I use just a little bit of cool water on my fingers. Helps things not stick. Oh, that dough off the dough hook. It's looking really good. So now I'm going to take the dough and I can stretch it and see through it. It's breaking a little bit, but I'm going to build up more of that gluten as it sits on the counter and bulk ferments, doing some stretch and fold. So I'm pretty happy with how this is right now. So we're going to put the dough into a glass bowl. I like glass so I can see how much is risen. Again, I just use a little spritz of water on here, but it should come out pretty cleanly. Okay. And then I'm just gonna get any other dough on the sides. With this, I love this scoop. My son got it for me for Christmas. I've got a link on my store to this. And there you go. I do like to temp my dough. My house tends to be on the cooler side. Sourdough likes it a little bit warmer for fermenting. So I always like to know how cold or warm the dough is. So right now it's 77 degrees. And I've got a little chart that I use that kind of gives you an idea of, based on the temperature, about how long it's going to take for this to bulk ferment before we can shape it and put it in the fridge. So I'm going to cover it right now with a plastic shower cap. And I'm going to set a timer for about an hour, and then when I come back in an hour, I'm going to do stretch and folds. And that's again going to help continue growing and creating that gluten in the sourdough bread. So I forgot to say, this recipe is going to make 2 loaves of sourdough. I like to have 2, either to make one for us and give one to a friend, or this time I'm going to make one plain sourdough and I'm going to make another that's going to be jalapeno and cheddar. Now my starter is, I'm pretty much done. I don't think I'm going to do any more baking with her anymore this weekend. So I'm just going to scrape her into a clean jar, just because that's how I roll, and put her in the fridge. But I'm going to seal her. There's these WEP jars have a sealing ring and some sealing tabs to keep it more airtight. I am going to put her in the fridge and seal it with an airtight lid. When I got it on the counter, just feeding her and waiting for her to be active and ready to cook with, I just use the lid without the ring. So it's on there, but it's not airtight. And she'll be ready to use the next time I want to use her. I don't leave mine on the counter. I don't feed it every day and discard. To me, that's way too much work, way too much flour. I put her in the fridge and pull her out about once a week. I'll feed her and wait till she doubles in size and is active and ready, and then I'll cook with her again. Her name is Crustine, in case you were wondering. I'm going to put Crustine in a fresh jar, and I like to know how much I'm putting in the fridge. If I don't want to keep all of this, I do have a discard jar in the fridge. I don't use a ton of discard, so it's not a very full jar. But I do like sometimes to be able to make something spur of the moment and have sourdough discard ready to go. If I don't have discard and I want to make a discard recipe, I will just feed my starter and use active starter, or after I make bread, I'll use whatever's left to make something else. So I've got my scale zeroed out, and I'm going to just transfer Crustine into a fresh jar. I think that's about 77 grams. I got a little more in here. That's like perfect for me to keep. I can do quite a bit with that when I'm ready. Feed her and have plenty of sourdough starter to bake something, and plenty left over to store for when I want to use it again next. Again, I'm not an expert, but this is just what I've been doing, and it's been working really well for me. There we go, 80 grams. All right, so it's actually 82 grams. I'm going to go ahead and put the seal on here so that it's more airtight. If you don't have it airtight, it will form, like I found, a kind of a skin on top. And it doesn't ruin it, but it isn't something I would cook with. I would, scrape it off. But if you keep a loose lid on when it's on the counter, or I put a airtight lid on it in the fridge, and she's just fine. Take it off the scale. So it's not around here. There we go. And I'm just going to write on top 82 grams. I'm going to write her name so I know that this is my sourdough starter and not discard. So she's just going to go back in the refrigerator, and she'll stay there for at least the next week, maybe more, until I'm ready to bake again. It's not a lot of starter in here. If I had saved more, I would be wanting to open it up midweek and make sure to release some of the air and the gases. Otherwise, they can blow. I've heard. It hasn't happened to me, but this is a pretty small amount, so in a week's time, I don't think I should have any trouble. So it's been an hour since I originally mixed up this batch of sourdough bread, and I'm going to do my first set of stretch and folds. So first I'm going to spray a little cool water on my hand. There we go. I'm going to squirt a little cool water on my hand so it doesn't stick. I'm just going to reach in, pull up. You don't want the dough to break, but you do want to stretch it, and then lay it over itself. A little more water. Then I'm going to turn the bowl a quarter and do it again. The dough feels kind of thin, loose, so it definitely is not ready to be made yet. It's still pretty sticky. That's where the water helps. Quarter turn. Get all the dough off the side here. All right. So I'm gonna put her back in the bowl. Now that she's back in the bowl, I want to temp her again just to see how warm she is. It's going to help me get an idea of how long the bulk fermentation is going to take. So she's still 77 degrees. So according to the chart I had, it could take anywhere from 6 to 7 hours. So I generally write down what time I started making the batch of sourdough. We started at 1:45, so that gives me an idea of when time-wise it should be done. But as always, you don't go just by the time. You got to look at the dough, feel the dough. Is it jiggly? Is it bubbling? Is it still sticky or not? And that's going to help determine when it needs to be shaped. But for now, she's going to sit back on the counter, keeping warm with a little shower cap on. I'm going to set a timer for another hour, and I'm going to come back and do another round of stretch and folds. I'm going to do this 4 times. So she just sits there between now and the next hour. Time for stretch and folds number 2. I've had her under a little towel, make sure she stays nice and warm. And just a little bit of water again. Reach in. Pull. Fold it over. Still a little sticky. Quarter turn. Quarter turn. Stretch. And final turn. Stretch. All right, let's just temper real quick. Still 77, so I'm looking at about 8:45 maybe. She should be ready to shape and then put in the fridge for bulk, for cold retard rather. So we're gonna cover it back up, set a timer for another hour, and come back and do it all again. stretch and folds number 3. Let's see how she's doing. Ooh, she's grown. You can see that she's almost halfway up the bowl. And she's getting a little bubbly. You can see there's a little bubble there. She's a little jiggly. So this is all looking very good. So I'm going to spray my hands with just a little bit of water. I'm going to use 2 hands this time. She's getting a lot of air bubbles and I don't want to knock a lot of those out. So I'm going to do something called the coil fold. It's a little gentler. And I'm going to take both hands and reach in and then gently just pull up and put it over yourself. Quarter turn, do it again. Hang a little bit. You don't want the dough to hang to the point where it rips or tears. Just got a little more water. She's still kind of sticky, which is to be expected at this stage. Quarter turn. There we go. And last one. And I can see a lot of little bubbles on the surface here, so that's a really good sign. And I'm just going to put her back in the bowl here and cover her back up. Put my towel on, just keep on letting temper. Let's see, she should still be 77. Nothing in here has changed, but I just like to know what the temperature is. Oh, she's a little cooler. So 74 right now. I might actually put her in the oven without it being on. I'm just going to set her in the oven with the light on, but no heat. Just inside the oven with the light on, and the light will create a little bit of heat and keep her nice and warm. She was doing really well, and she's cooled off a little bit. I want to try and keep her to that 8-hour full fermentation time frame because I don't want to be up too late waiting for her to finish. So I'm going to put her in the oven with my towel and the light on so that she'll be nice and warm and toasted. We'll come back in an hour for our final stretch and fold. Okay, this is stretch and fold number 4. Looks definitely more bubbly, lots of surface air pocket bubbles underneath. I don't know if you can see, but there's little pockets of air and lots of bubbles. So that's a good sign. I just want to take her temperature before I do stretch and folds. A little warmer, 76 from 74. So that's good. Let's go ahead and do some more coil folds. Lots of bubbles in there. I don't want to knock a lot of that air out. So I'm going to do a more gentle stretch and fold. Quarter turn. She's definitely not where I want her to be. And I will definitely leave her fermenting at least another hour, maybe 2, depending on what happens. She's not sticky, so that's pretty good. She's a little jiggly. I still think she needs a little more time. That's the thing about sourdough, is there's lots of rules, and you learn the rules, but then you learn what works for you and what rules you can break. You know, with the stretch and folds, most recipes say, you know, wait an hour and then do 4 sets of stretch and folds every hour. But I've also done it every half hour because I was in a hurry and I had somewhere to be. So you just got to find out what's going to work for you, and you'll get to know in your home how your dough reacts, what kind of temperature it works best in, and you know what it feels like when it's ready. To me, this isn't quite ready. She still needs a bit more time. I started at 145 at 77 degrees. It's now 7:23 and she was 76 degrees. So she could be done the next hour, maybe 2. So I'm going to set a timer for another hour and come back and check her. All right. So it's been another hour And she's looking good. Just curious what her temp is. Ooh, she's 81. So she's getting a little warmer, and the dough is not sticking to the thermometer. She's pretty jiggly. I see a lot of air bubbles. You can see the other side. She's still a little tacky. So to me, I think I'm going to let her sit for another, I'll check her in half an hour, maybe let her go another hour. I don't want her to over ferment. It's a fine line. But I'm trying to make sure we get done here before it gets too late. That's one of the things about the rules of sourdough, or actually not the rules, but just understanding how sourdough works. The warmer it is, the faster it goes. The cooler it is, the slower it goes. So you can use that to your advantage. Like tonight, I'm trying to speed things up. So I've got her in the oven with the light on, no heat, just the light, and that's warming her up, and so things are moving along a little more quickly. If I wanted to slow things down because I wasn't going to have time to manage the dough at a certain time when it would get done if it was warmer, I would put her in a cooler place. In the winter, our house is a lot cooler. We like to keep it cool. So when I was making sourdough this winter, I actually would put a heating pad on the counter with a towel on it and place my bowl on that towel, because our house was really cold and it would have taken really long for the bulk fermentation to take place. So she's doing pretty good. I'm just going to cover her back up, put her back in that oven, no heat, just the light. And I do put a little note over the start button on the oven so that nobody turns on the oven and ruins the dough. But we're going to let her go a little bit longer, and then hopefully I'll be able to come back and shape her up and then put her in the fridge for a cold retard overnight so that tomorrow I can bake 2 loaves of bread. So it's 9:55 at night. This is about the timing that, so look at how that came up clean. It was about the timing that the little chart I referenced said that it would take. You can see it's risen a whole lot. It's very jiggly, almost like water, but it's not water. It's very well together, and it's you can push it and it comes back and nothing sticks. There's lots and lots of air bubbles on the bottom. You can see it's very airy, and so she's ready to be shaped. So generally I'm gonna dump it out, and we're gonna get 2 loaves out of it, and you shape it and then put it into a container, and then you cover it, and it goes in the refrigerator for what's called a cold retard. And it may still grow in the fridge. Mine typically don't grow. This is a pretty good recipe I got from my sister-in-law. I've really had very little trouble with it. I see a lot of new sourdough bakers who are struggling to get any kind of rise or to make bread, and this recipe is pretty tried and true. For me, it doesn't usually grow a lot overnight. We'll see, maybe there's something different today, but that's typically what I've experienced. So let's get her dumped out and shaped. So I'm just gonna let her fall out. It may take a little bit. Coax her out as well, but she is pulling away from the bowl, which is what you want. Yeah, there we go. So this is a really nice dough drop. Pretty clean, pretty clean. A little bit of stuff here and there, but really pretty clean. Love it. Somebody uses a bench scraper and water. I don't use any more flour. I just put a little bit of water on my hands and my bench scraper, and that's really all I use. Now, I could weigh this and divide it up equally. I'm just gonna take my bench scraper and divide her in half as best I can. Take one, set it aside. And here's where you want to build a little bit more tension in the dough. Tension is part of what's going to help it, I guess, create the oven spring. Again, I'm really, really new to this. That's my favorite part. You just want to, see it's still a little bit sticky, but the more you work with it, the less sticky it gets. And I'm just sticking the bench scraper underneath and then pulling her forward a little bit. You'll see, I don't know if you can see that or not, but she's got a couple really big bubbles on top. I may pop those are really big, but we'll see. But just working with her on the bench like this creates that tension in the dough. I sound like I know what I'm doing, but I really don't entirely know what I'm doing. But this is kind of the reshaping, if you will. So I'm just kind of dragging it a little bit. As I drag it, it creates tension across the top. And I'm kind of turning it as I go as well to make it a nice shape. That's pretty good. I'm liking how that feels. The dough is a lot less sticky now. And she's holding together really well. I'm just going to set her aside. And then I'm going to work with this next one. So this one's, see, she's a little stickier. More water. And then again, same thing. Just drag toward you, and as you drag it across, it's creating a tension. I like doing this part, it's a lot of fun. I like the feel of the dough. You can tell it feels really good. I think this is going to be a couple good loaves. Alright, so we've already got some pretty good shaping here. I'm going to go ahead and set these near one another, not too close, and cover them with a towel, leave them for about 10 minutes, just for a bench rest. And what's going to happen is they're going to loosen up a little bit more. And then I'm going to come in and do a final shape and put them into some bannetons to go in the refrigerator. One of them I'm going to make jalapeno and cheddar, so you'll actually get to see how I add some inclusions, but that's kind of a step I've only recently started doing, so don't feel like you need to do that right away. All right, I'm going to cover that, wait 10 minutes and come back and finish this off for the night. All right, we're in the home stretch. The loaves are still resting, but while they're doing that, I'm going to prepare my bannetons. These are considered bannetons because they're not those wicker basket things. But this is what I got when I got a kit my sister-in-law suggested. And I love these. I see a lot of people with the wicker baskets and the cloth having trouble with mold and all kinds of stuff. These are fantastic. And they flatten so that you can store them really easily. And then you just unfold them. So I've got one that's round, and then this one is oblong. I don't have to worry about mold. They're easy to wash, they dry well, and they store great. So I'm going to first, the other thing I have before I do that, I have some white rice flour. I'm not sure if this is the exact right kind of rice flour you're supposed to have. I've seen a lot of people talk about a Thai rice flour. I couldn't find that. So I just found a white rice flour. The rice flour doesn't end up getting incorporated, I don't think, into the loaf. It's just in here to keep everything from sticking. This isn't necessary, but I do love this little shaker ball. I can open it up. So it opens up. There's some that have a little claw kind of grip. This one my son got me for Christmas, and you open it up, you scoop in the rice flour, close it, and then you can shake it. And it's just a nice fine layer. But before I had that, I was just sort of using a spoon and putting it in the bottom and shaking it around. It was fine, but this is fun and it makes it go a little quicker. So what I do is I just spray a small amount of water in my bannetons. Then I get some of this rice flour and I just give it a shake. And I get the sides and the bottom a nice coat, and that way the dough doesn't stick when I go to get it out in the morning. I need a little more. It's very light. I think it's probably meant for powdered sugar, maybe. I don't know. But it's really nice, light dusting, very fine. So I like that a lot. All right. And I literally store this inside this white rice flour. It's the only thing I use it for. I'm sure you could use it for other things, but I just don't. All right. So let me start with my first loaf. Again, I'm gonna wet my hands just a little bit. And so she's still holding pretty good. She did relax a little bit, and that's okay. I'm going to put her into this oblong one. So really all I'm going to do is I'm going to turn her over. I'm going to stretch her out just a little bit. And then kind of fold her in half. Put her in this basket. There's a thing called stitching. I don't know, you're supposed to be able to take the dough and do something, and again, it helps keep the tension. My dough never really sticks to itself super great, so I pretend like I'm stitching. I don't know if I really am or not, but that's kind of how it looks inside the container. Actually, that looks pretty good and pretty even. I'm gonna give just a little bit more on top, some light coat, and then I'm going to cover this. These are just disposable shower caps. I have all these things linked to my Amazon account if you need them on my store on my website. That one's done. Now this one, my second loaf, I am again going to stretch out, but I'm really going to try and stretch her a little bit more because I am planning to add in the cheddar and the jalapeno. Oh my gosh, I made a hole. I've never done that before. Oh, see what happens? Oh, there we go. That's better. That has literally never happened before. Just trying to stretch it without ripping or making a hole. Oh my goodness. Stop that. Okay. So now that I've got her stretched out pretty good, I have weighed out some fresh diced jalapenos, some pickled jalapenos, and some cheddar cheese. I got the weights from That Sourdough Gal. She's got a recipe on her website. I did not make her bread recipe, which calls for using some of the pickled jalapeno juice and stuff. I kind of forgot about all that being part of it. I just used my regular recipe, and I'm going to add this in. So I've kind of spread it out. I'm just going to put some down the middle, half of the inclusions down the middle. I did put a teaspoon or two of all-purpose flour and mix it. It helps them not sink to the bottom, but actually stay kind of floating in the bread. All right, I'm just gonna fold it like in thirds. So this part over, this part over, and then I'm gonna put some more here. I have done cinnamon swirl, which is really good. Again, I got that from That Sourdough Gal. It was super good. So I'm just kind of smushing it in a little bit here. I don't want to push too hard. I don't want to knock a lot of that air out. And now I'm going to roll it up. And as I do, I'm going to pull it a little towards me again to keep some of that tension. And as I'm rolling, I want to make sure I am pinching the sides a little bit so the stuff doesn't fall out like it's already starting to do. So I'm not super good at the inclusions. Like I said, this is only the second time I've done cheddar and jalapeno, and I've done the cinnamon like 3 times. So there's a little extra. See, I'm not an expert, but I do have fun. I have a feeling she's going to leak tomorrow when I bake her, but it's looking pretty good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick her up, and the good side, the top is going to go down, so that tomorrow when I flip her out, it's going to be the top. So I'm going to use my bench scraper, pick her up. I'm just going to fold her a little bit in on herself. And again, I'm trying to pinch some of that dough together. I'm making some holes. Don't need a closed hole. Oh dear. Yeah, it'll be interesting when it bakes tomorrow. I need to put too many inclusions. Popping out. Once that rice flour is on there, then the dough doesn't want to stick to itself. Okay, well, we're going to leave it and call it a night. It doesn't look quite as neat as the other one, but that's what it's looking like right now. We're going to give it a light dusting and hope for the best when I bake it tomorrow. Some of that cheese is definitely going to melt out. So these are covered, and they're going to go in the refrigerator overnight, and I'm going to bake them in the morning. Have a good day. So my oven is preheated, and I brought my sourdough up. It's risen a little bit. It's about what I expect from my sourdough. It doesn't tend to rise that much more in the oven. These have been in the oven probably 12 hours. So they've had a nice long time in the fridge. Here is my cheddar and jalapeno. She still looks a little bit lumpy, but this is going to be the bottom. She's definitely going to leak some cheese, unfortunately. I'm definitely going out on a limb showing you this because I'm not very good at adding inclusions yet, but you'll see. If I can do it, you can do it. So I'm going to start by, I got to work quickly, but I'm going to start by getting out the loaf pan that I'm going to use to put my the tart in. I'm not going to score it until I get it in the pan. I found if I score it first and then put it in, it starts to relax a little bit with that score. And then by the time I have to squeeze it back into the pan, I have to rescore it anyway because it's kind of closed back up. So I'm going to leave her to be scored when I get her in the pan. I am going to use a little bit of parchment paper so that it doesn't stick as I'm trying to put it into the hot stone. All right, let's do it. Put this over, flip her over, she comes out nice. You can see she's looking pretty good there. I'm going to plop her right inside, nice and easy. And then I'm just going to give a couple slashes. I'm not going to do anything fancy to this one. Make sure they're nice and deep. This gives the air a place to escape. It gives you a nice little design there. You can see, I just did real simple 3 slashes. Oops, gonna give me a little mist. I'm gonna put this on top. Push that all under and put her back in the oven and take the next one out. Okay, I'm gonna use my sling. This down a little bit. She's gonna be a little bit of a hot mess. Let's see how she looks. Oh gosh, yeah. I've got a whole side here that's completely cracked. That's not good. I don't know that I can pinch that together at all. Some of the dough. The more I try and pinch, the more holes I make. So it is what it is. We're going to have some leakage for sure. I'm going to just do a simple score on this one because I think it's going to be a little bit of a mess. Once you score it once, I've heard if you go in and just do an extra little line right underneath, you get more of that ear. I don't really care if it gets an ear or not, but that's what they say to do. All right. And in the oven she's going to go. They're going to cook for 20 minutes at 500 degrees. Set a timer on my watch so I don't forget. 20 minutes. Then at 20 minutes, I'm going to turn the oven down to 450. I'm going to open it up, take those lids off, put them back in, and let them bake some more for, I'll probably chuck them at about 22 minutes and see how they're doing. I find if I go the full 30, the crust is a little bit, it's nice and dark, but it's almost a little too hard and rough on the roof of our mouth. We don't like it quite that hard. So I've been cooking mine more about 25 minutes, but I always use a thermometer and temp them, and I want to make sure they're at least 205 degrees before I take them out of the oven. All right, we'll come back and check on them in 20 minutes. So my timer just went off. I'm going to take the lids off the bread and turn the oven down. Let's see how they look. Ooh, that's got a lot of spring. Oh, she's definitely, oh man, that smells amazing. She's definitely spilling out a little bit. Let's take a look. Don't judge my dirty oven. But they're looking really, really good. All right, I'm going to turn the oven down to 450 and let them cook for about another 25 minutes. It's been about 25 minutes, so I checked them at 20 minutes, and the loaf was at 205 temp-wise, but it was still a little light in color, so I left it in, and the bowl was not yet to temp. So I put them in for another 5 minutes. Let's take a peek. Okay. That's hot. Silicone's hot. Let's see if the bowl is the right temp, otherwise I'm going to put it back in the oven. There we go. Now she's over 206. She was at about 189 at 20 minutes. So 206, that's done. Actually, there's not a ton of leakage. I'm really kind of happy with that. There's a little leakage because I did have a hole in the side. Oh, and I meant to put, I had some jalapenos and some cheese I was going to sprinkle on top, but I took the lid off and I forgot. Maybe next time. Let's take a look at her. Look at that. So we had a little leakage on the side. The bottom looks really good. I'm really happy with this. It smells amazing. Just amazing. Now, this loaf looks beautiful. Let's temper just to be sure. She should be more than cooked because it was cooked at 20 minutes. It was just really light. Yeah, she's 210. So she is more than cooked, and she looks beautiful. And you'll notice too on this one, she's got a lot of little bubbles. You probably can't see that, but lots of little surface bubbles. So that's that moisture. It's what spraying it does. Just like that little bubbly. She looks beautiful. Crust on the bottom, not too overdone. Again, that's what having that pan at the bottom will help do. She's got lots of bubbles, those little surface bubbles. She had a lot of good spring form. Looks really, really good. It'll be interesting once it cools to take a look at the crumb. So you could cut them right away, but actually some of it cooling, it's got that kind of carryover cooking, so it's still doing its thing inside. It's not really recommended to cut them right away. You're going to want to let them cool off a bit and then slice into them. I use a serrated knife for that. Let's talk a little bit while these are cooling about storage. Bread doesn't last super long in the cookhouse. With it being just Brian and I during Aiden's school year, I was making probably a loaf or two a week. A lot of times I would make one loaf for us and give one away. Sometimes I would make a cinnamon swirl one, so we'd have that and a regular loaf. So storage became an issue. What do we do with this bread so that it stays good? I've seen lots of stuff online. I got out my cake plate, and this stores my bread beautifully. This bread was made on Friday, I believe, and today's Monday. It's still really soft. It's going to lose some of that crunchiness to it when it comes out of the oven, but we'll take a slice and throw it in the toaster oven and toast it up a little bit, add a little butter. It's perfect. You can freeze them once they are cooked. I've done that. I wanted to bring a loaf to a friend's dinner party, so I made a loaf of bread. I wrapped up really well in saran wrap and then foil, put it in the freezer, and when I got to her home, before dinner was ready, we took it out of all the packaging. Believe it or not, I ran it under water. It was somewhat thawed because I had taken it out before we drove to her house, but you run it under water, it sounds like the craziest thing, like it's going to ruin your bread. Put it in the oven on a rack, 350 for about 20 minutes. It came out like it was freshly baked. It was so delicious. So that's something else you can do. Then I also use this beeswax wrap. Now this loaf got a little dark. I forgot to turn down the temperature from 500 to 450 for that second part of the bake. And this also has cinnamon in it, so she did get a little darker than I would have preferred. But this is a little baby bowl that I made when I wanted to test out the jalapeno and cheddar. So I made a tiny jalapeno and cheddar last week, and then I made a cinnamon swirl here. And I'm shocked nobody's cut into this yet. So this is from Thursday. It still feels really good. Still got a little crunch to it, but it's soft. It's going to be delicious, sliced with some butter. But I love these because you can wrap up the bread really easily and store it right on your counter. There are beeswax bags, and originally that's what I was kind of thinking I was going to use. I recommended it to a friend, and she's had great luck with it. But I saw a lot of other reports and reviews online that people end up having their bread mold in those beeswax bags. I'm not sure what the difference between the bag and the just wrap is, and then they don't know how to get the mold out of the beeswax. So I went with the wrap. It had better reviews. I've been really happy with it. It's really easy to clean, just some warm water and just kind of with my hands or a sponge. I don't use any soap really. And I leave it lay out to dry, and then I fold it up and put it in the drawer until I need it next. So that's how I store my bread. Doesn't usually last long. I'm really shocked this is still here. I think Ada doesn't know that it's available to be eaten. They know sometimes I give my bread away, so they cautiously ask, is this for us or is it for someone else? So maybe they think it's for someone else, but I'll let them know that they can eat it. So that's how I make my sourdough. We'll come back for one final piece of the viewing videos, and I'm going to cut into the bread and see how the crumb looks. The crumb will tell me, did I do the bulk fermentation long enough or too long? It's either going to be underproofed, well-proofed, or overproofed. Now, I'm not cooking bread for Paul Hollywood, so I'm not going to worry a ton about that. I do want to do a good job. I want to make good bread for my family. We've had bread that's been slightly underproofed. We've had bread that's been overproofed. I had bread that was so overproofed, instead of making bread, I made focaccia, which was also really good. My family eats it however it comes out. But for me, I'm always learning. I like to try to figure out what I did, what worked well, what I want to change next time. So I always kind of look at my crumb and want to see how does it look. There's some photos online you can use to kind of compare your crumb to see what it says. I've heard of people using ChatGPT and giving a picture of their crumb and having ChatGPT give you a review of your crumb. So there's lots of things you can do. It'll give you ideas on what to do to fix or change it. It's just fun for me to take a look at that and see what I can do better maybe next time. Or maybe what I did worked well, and so I'll make note of that and say, hey, this worked really well. This was the temperature that the bread was bulk fermenting at for this amount of time, and it worked really well. So I can easily recreate that next time. So baking sourdough does seem like it takes a long time, and it does take some effort for sure, but most of that time it's just sitting on the counter doing its thing. You know, I probably spent a cumulative amount of time of 30 minutes mixing the dough, doing stretch and folds, shaping the dough, pulling it out, scoring it, and baking it. The rest of that time it was just sitting either on the counter or in the fridge doing its thing. So it's a lot of fun to do. I highly recommend sourdough bread if you haven't tried it. And seriously, if I can do it, anybody can do it. I'm really not a baker, but this has really made me really enjoy baking, and I really think that it's the measuring of the ingredients with a scale that has been game changer for me. I get consistently good bakes versus when I would bake before, I would feel like I did the same exact thing and yet things didn't turn out the same. So when you measure your ingredients, you really know exactly what's in there, and you can replicate it very easily, and you get the same results, which I think is really exciting for me. So we'll come back in a little bit and check out the crumb, and then we're going to enjoy some sourdough bread. Okay, my loaves are cooled, and hear that? Oh, maybe closer to my microphone will be better. They smell good. Let's cut into the, this is just a regular plain sourdough. Oh, that looks good. Ready? I think the crumb looks really good. I'm really happy with that. Not too many big holes. That would mean it was overproofed. It's not real tight structures, so that would mean it was underproofed. I think this is really pretty good. I'm happy. Let's take a look at the, this is cheddar and jalapeno. So I just used my regular loaf recipe, but I added in, I think it was about 100 grams of chopped, really finely diced fresh jalapeno, and then I did another, I think 40 grams of diced up pickled jalapenos, and about 100 grams of the cheese. Oh wait, maybe that was 46 grams of the diced up cheese. I'd have to look. I was kind of following the guidelines from that sourdough gal. She's got a jalapeno cheddar recipe on her website, and she makes the dough a little differently. She adds some of the jalapeno juice, which I'll probably try that recipe next, but this was just adding something to what I already make, and it's turned out so good I had to make another one. So let's cut her open. There we go. That looks really good. Now, interesting, I don't know, it does have a couple bigger holes. And they both proved it's the same dough. I just split it in half. So I find that interesting. I don't know what it means. I could take a picture, ask ChatGPT, I guess. But man, it sure looks good. I'm gonna cut myself a slice. This one has a little more jalapeno in it. It looks so good. So good. Oh, it smells heavenly. That's yummy. I feel like the pickled jalapenos really add a little bit of, maybe a little salt, a little of that tanginess to it. It's so good. It's not spicy at all. Well, I say that. I like spice. But even Brian said it wasn't too spicy when I made it last time. So this is going to be good. I think I'm going to use this and make a sandwich for lunch today. Awesome flavor. So I hope now you see exactly how I make my sourdough. I'm not an expert. This is just a process that I've been using, guided by my sister-in-law Lauren, guided by that sourdough gal videos, and I'm having fun with it. I want to just encourage you. This isn't meant to be the end-all be-all tutorial, but for those that I've shared my starter with, I want to be able to point you to something that can help you get on your journey. If you're looking to make a starter, I would say follow that sourdough gal. She's got directions on how to do that. Or you can reach out to me privately. I can tell you what I did, but I'm not gonna shoot that video. It does take some patience, and it took me about 12 days to get my starter going before I could actually cook with it. And I did that in November of 2024. And now I'm in June of 2025. So I've only been baking sourdough for about 7 months, but I love it. It's so tasty. I love using the sourdough discard to make lots of other recipes. I've made things like pretzels and muffins and cookies and the pancakes, waffles. So the recipes are endless, and it's a lot of fun. I'm really enjoying it. It's really increased my love of baking, which I really did not have much of a love of before. We do enjoy this bread a ton, and I hope you do too. Good luck on your sourdough journey.